All right, now we're going to look at the Ultimate Sandbag Power Clean. It should be pretty easy at this point, especially because we taught you to clean the fist first. Remember, you're probably going to teach people to clean the fist first because this is actually the compensation we talked about in the clean and press. We're getting into that front load position. So if we do this over and over and over again and ingrain that pattern, when we want people to clean the fist, it's going to be very awkward because they're going to want to naturally go into that compensation of getting it on the back side of the wrist. Now, this position is not necessarily a Zercher squat, where meaning the crooks of the arm of the barbell. It's not a front squat. So let's talk about the correct position first. Jessica's going to start with the USB against her shins. You don't want it to be out in front of your feet. She's going to hinge back so the weight's in contact, just like she's going to deadlift. Arms are locked, tension between the shoulder blades. She's going to jump, drive the elbows up, and scoop her arms underneath the weight. See how when she catches it, her elbows are in close to her ribs. She's not flaring out her elbows, and her elbows are not very high. She wants to catch it just in close, as though I can't get to her ribs through her arms. This is our standing plank. This is why we looked at doing the plank series right from the get-go. Unwind the arms, push the hips back, and receive the weight. See how fluid she was. Remember, we want to pay attention to what comes down just as much as what comes up. Now, for a lot of people, they're going to do several things that may be a little bit awkward. One is trying to catch the weight too early. So Jessica, can you show it too early of a scoop? Okay, you don't want people rolling the weight up their body. Come back down. You want to create enough force through that high pull where you just scoop the arms underneath. Again, the reason teaching the high pull first is that sometimes people do the scoop because they're a little bit nervous about getting the weight up. Let's do a couple good power cleans, Jess. Now we're doing this position if we're going to do a lot of things from that front hold position. And relax, good. Meaning if we're going to squat, lunge, step up, good morning, a lot of those drills are going to come from that front hold position. When she gets up there, she's being strong, driving the elbows in the ribs, but also squeezing the shoulder blades back. She's actively driving into her heels. You also want to pay attention to the fact of when she's coming down that the weight never comes away from her body. Let's watch her do 2 more and watch how she's able to unroll the elbows and keep the weight back by going quickly upon her hips. See, that weight doesn't come back out. I could put my hand right here and she never hits it the entire time. So she's in control both on the way up and on the way down. As I talked about earlier, if you've taken the time doing the high pull and the clean to fist, this should be a very simple drill to teach. Make sure that you watch for those compensations. And if you're finding people that are doing anything, for example, getting bruising upon their biceps, what they're doing is they're scooping early, or, Jessica, can you do where your elbows get locked in? They're swinging the weight out and it's coming impact upon their body. There should be no impact upon the body if you do it correctly. It should be a nice smooth manner when the body absorbs the weight throughout the entire system. Now the next drill is our front load squat. It's a very common and popular Ultimate Sandbag drill. Unfortunately, it's one of those that people do incorrectly as well. What we want to do is get in a good power clean position first. Now, let's go ahead and just imagine Jessica power clean the weight up. Probably one of the first things that people do incorrectly is they don't have an active upper body. We'll show you this with the weight in a second. They think it's a front squat, so they allow the elbows to come too high. We don't want the weight up here because unlike a barbell, the weight's still sitting in the arms versus the frame of the body. So it's going to create her shoulders to fatigue too quickly and they're just going to drop, fall forward. Secondly, a lot of people don't have an active upper body. We'll go over what that is in a moment. And what they do is they'll round the shoulders and they'll start opening up the elbow angle. So now they're just basically fighting a big bicep curl. We want to create a strong system in the upper back and the upper body so that we can have a good foundation in which to squat from. You won't be able to handle enough load if you don't get in the right position with the upper body. Secondly is the fact that if we're going to put the analogy that the front load position is like a plank, we're going to want to slow down the time under tension. Remember what I said throughout this course. The first thing people want to do when they're uncomfortable is go really fast. I'd rather you do fewer repetitions with a really slow, precise tempo than a whole bunch of repetitions where you're just sort of bouncing through the drill. So let's see it in action. Jessica's going to set up for her power clean. She's going to actively pull into the weight. Make sure her elbows are in towards her ribs, her shoulder blades are tight. She's going to initiate again, pushing the knees out slowly, and then driving up through the heels. Again, we're watching to make sure she doesn't go around her low back. Go nice and slow right there, Jess. Now, the other good thing is that she's not hitting her elbows to her knees because she's not allowing those elbows to flare out. Let your elbows flare out, Jess, as you go down. And you see how people run into their knees. But it's also, you saw how she leaned forward because she unlocked her upper back. Go and relax for a second. So elbow position is critical. If anything, you want to think about squeezing the elbows inwards and creating more tension, and that will actually give you more stability. Now, where people have a lot of collapse, and we're talking collapse specifically through the torso, is when they start to reverse the movement and they come back up. So what I like to use is a cue of driving the elbows up when they're coming out of the bomb position. That may seem like I'm being hypocritical because I just told you not to get the elbows up, but we're doing it in this very specific position for a very specific purpose. That is, when I come out of the bomb position, I think about driving the elbows up. Instead of leaning through my back, it creates extension through my whole body. So let's try it, Jess. Clean, elbows in, nice and slow, then drive the elbows up. Nice, one more time. Drive the elbows up, beautiful. And relax. So it's a great cue if you're finding people are having this problem with reversing out of the bomb position of the front hold squat. Remember the cues of pushing those knees out, pulling the weight in during the entire movement. As they get towards the bomb position, they're going to want to collapse the upper back, so giving them that little tactile cue will be very important.